I stared at the gleaming red sports car in our driveway, my hands trembling as I clutched my phone with the summer camp cancellation email still displayed on the screen. 10 years of marriage, and this was the moment I finally understood. I was married to a monster. My name is Raquel, and until today, I thought I was living the American dream. Nice house in the suburbs, 2 beautiful daughters, and a husband with a 6-figure income. But standing here, watching Truman run his hands over that ridiculous car's hood like he was caressing a lover, I felt something inside me snap. "Isn't she beautiful?" Truman called out, grinning like a teenager. 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. Only 5 of these babies in the state. I forced a smile, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "What about the girls' summer camp?" He barely looked up. "Oh, that. Had to make a choice, honey. This was too good a deal to pass up." "A choice?" My voice cracked. "You mean you chose this car over our daughter's summer plans? Plans we've had for months?" Truman finally turned to face me, his expression hardening. "Look, they're just kids. They won't even remember missing one summer camp. But this?" He patted the car's hood. "This is an investment." The front door burst open, and our daughters Scarlett and Tinsley ran out, still in their school uniforms. Their excited squeals at seeing the new car felt like daggers in my chest. "Daddy, it's so cool!" Scarlett exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "Can we go for a ride?" Tinsley added, already reaching for the passenger door. "Girls," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, "go inside and start your homework. Now." Something in my tone made them freeze. They shared a look before quietly heading back inside, their shoulders slumped. "You're being dramatic," Truman said once they were gone. "The girls will be fine staying home this summer. Maybe we can set up a kiddie pool or something." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. A kiddie pool? They were going to learn archery, horseback riding, make new friends. They've been talking about nothing else for months. "It's my money, Raquel." His voice took on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. "I work 60 hours a week to provide for this family. I get to decide how it's spent." "Our money," I corrected him. "Our family, our decisions. Or at least they should be." He jingled the car keys, already losing interest in the conversation. "Want to go for a spin? Might improve your mood." I turned away, walking toward the house. "I have to call Gemma." "Don't go crying to your friend about this," he called after me. "And don't you dare post about it on that mother's group of yours." I slammed the door behind me, my heart racing. In the kitchen, I found the girls at the table pretending to do homework while obviously eavesdropping. "Mom?" Scarlett's voice was small. "Are we really not going to camp?" Tinsley's lower lip trembled. "But I already told Madison we'd be bunkmates." I pulled them both into a tight hug, breathing in the familiar scent of their strawberry shampoo. "I'm going to fix this," I whispered. "I promise." Later that night, after the girls were in bed, I sat in our home office, staring at our joint bank account on the computer screen. Every deposit, every withdrawal, every impulse purchase Truman had made over the years, it was all there, including the $85,000 he'd just spent on that car. My phone buzzed with a text from Gemma. "You okay? Want me to come over?" I typed back, "Not tonight. But I need your help with something tomorrow. Time to teach my husband about consequences." Setting my phone down, I opened a new browser tab and started researching state laws about joint property in marriages. Then I moved on to local car dealerships and private sellers. By midnight, I had the beginnings of a plan forming. Truman found me still at the computer when he finally came up to bed. "Still sulking?" he asked, loosening his tie. I closed the laptop and gave him my sweetest smile. "No, just catching up on some things. Hey, you should take the girls to school in your new car tomorrow. Show it off a bit." His face lit up. "Now that's more like it. See? You're coming around." I waited until he was in the shower before whispering to myself, "Oh, I'm coming around all right. Just not the way you think." That night, I lay awake listening to Truman's steady breathing beside me, my mind racing with possibilities. He thought he had all the power, that I would just roll over and accept his decisions like I always had. But he was wrong. Dead wrong. Tomorrow, I would start taking back control, and it would begin with that damn car. "He did what?" Gemma nearly choked on her latte, her eyes widening as we sat in her kitchen the next morning. Please tell me you're joking. I shook my head, clutching my own coffee cup like a lifeline. $85,000, Gem. Just gone. And you know what he said when I mentioned the girls' therapy sessions might need to be cut back? They'll grow out of their anxiety eventually. That absolute piece of... Gemma caught herself glancing toward her back door where our kids were playing. What are you going to do? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. I've been doing some research. Did you know that in our state, if something is purchased with joint funds during a marriage, both parties have equal claim to it? Go on, Gemma said, a slow smile spreading across her face. I also know someone who'd be very interested in buying a slightly used sports car, someone who'd pay cash, no questions asked. Raquel, Gemma gasped, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. You wouldn't. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and showed her the texts I'd exchanged with our neighbor, Imran. Remember how Truman screwed him over on that business deal last year? Gemma grabbed my phone, scrolling through the messages. Holy shit, you're serious. But won't Truman just call the police? And tell them what? That his wife sold their jointly owned car? I've already spoken to a lawyer friend. It's completely legal. A knock at the back door made us both jump. Imran stood there, waving through the glass. Gemma let him in, checking first to make sure our kids were still occupied with their game. Ladies, he said, settling into a chair at the kitchen table. I think I found your buyer, guy named Marcus. He's been looking for this exact model and he's got cash ready. My heart started racing. How much? 90,000. He knows it's worth more, but he understands the unusual circumstances. I let out a low whistle. That's 5,000 more than Truman paid. Karma's a beautiful thing, Gemma murmured. There's just one catch, Imran continued. He wants to see it today. Can you get the car? I glanced at my watch. Truman's in meetings until 6. He always leaves the spare key in his desk drawer at home. I paused, reality hitting me. Oh God, am I really doing this? Gemma grabbed my hand. Think about the girls, Rack. Think about their faces when they found out about camp. Think about every time he's made a major decision without consulting you. And think about my startup, Imran added quietly. The one he tanked because he thought it was funny to watch me scramble. Some people only learn through consequences. I took a deep breath. Okay, Imran, tell Marcus to meet us at the park behind the elementary school at 3. I'll have the car there. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. I kept checking my phone, half expecting Truman to somehow know what I was planning. But his only message was a photo of him posing next to the car in his office parking lot, captioned, "Living the Dream." At 2:30, I used my key to enter our house, my hands shaking as I retrieved the spare car key from Truman's desk. The garage door opened silently, and there it sat, gleaming in the afternoon sun. This is for Scarlett's archery lessons, I whispered as I slid into the driver's seat, for Tinsley's horseback riding dreams, for every time you made me feel small. The engine purred to life, and I backed out carefully, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Gemma was waiting in her car at the end of our street, ready to follow me to the meeting spot. Marcus turned out to be a middle-aged man in an impeccable suit who barely spoke 2 words. He circled the car once, nodded, and handed Imran a briefcase. Count it, he said simply, $90,000 in neat stacks of hundreds. I signed over the title with trembling fingers, watching as Marcus drove away in what had been, until moments ago, Truman's pride and joy. You okay? Gemma asked as I stared at the briefcase. No, I admitted, but I will be. I turned to Imran. Thank you, both of you. What's your next move? Imran asked. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. First, I'm going to transfer these funds to the joint account. Then I'm going to call Gwendolyn from the Mothers Group. Her summer camp scholarship program is about to get a very generous donation. And Truman? Gemma pressed. I checked the time, 4:15 p.m. Less than 2 hours until he discovered his precious car was gone. Now, I said, a strange calm settling over me. We wait for the fireworks. The first sign that Truman had discovered the missing car was the sound of tires screeching into our driveway. I sat calmly at the kitchen island, sipping chamomile tea, as the front door flew open with such force it rattled the windows. "Where is it?" Truman's face was scarlet, his tie askew. "Where's my car?" I took another sip of tea. "Our car, you mean?" "Don't play games with me, Raquel." "Where is it?" The girls appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the commotion. "Daddy," Scarlett called down. "Why are you yelling?" "Girls, stay upstairs," I said firmly. "Daddy and I need to talk." Truman paced the kitchen like a caged animal, running his hands through his hair. "I've already called the police. They're on their way." "Perfect," I said, sliding my phone across the counter toward him. "While we wait, you might want to check our joint account." His hands shook as he picked up the phone. I watched his eyes widen as he saw the deposit. $90,000, I said quietly. $5,000 more than you paid. You sold my car?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Our car," I corrected him again. "Purchased with our joint funds, which means I had every legal right to sell it, just like you had the legal right to buy it without consulting me." The doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood on our porch, looking mildly annoyed at being called out for what was clearly a domestic dispute. "Officers," I said, gesturing them inside, "would you like some tea?" "This woman stole and sold my car," Truman exploded. The older officer pulled out a notepad. "Sir, was the vehicle registered in your name only?" "Well, no, but—" "And was it purchased with joint marital funds?" "Yes, but she had no right—" "Actually, sir," the younger officer interrupted, "in this state she had every right. If there's no evidence of theft or fraud, this is a civil matter between spouses." I could practically see the steam coming from Truman's ears. "But she sold it without my permission." "Just like you canceled our daughter's summer camp without mine," I said softly. The officers exchanged glances. The older one cleared his throat. "Ma'am, can you prove the funds from the sale were deposited into a joint account?" I showed them the banking app on my phone. They nodded, made a few notes, and turned to leave. "I'm sorry you wasted our time, sir," the younger officer said to Truman. "Maybe next time. Discuss major purchases with your wife first." After they left, Truman collapsed onto a kitchen chair, looking deflated. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do this to me?" "To you?" I felt my careful composure cracking. "What about what you did to our girls? To me? Every major decision, every financial choice, you make them all alone like we're just accessories in your life." "I provide for this family," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "Everything I do is for us." "No," I said, standing up. "Everything you do is for you, but that ends now." I walked to my laptop and pulled up the email confirmation. "I've donated $60,000 to Gwendolyn's summer camp scholarship program. Our girls will attend as planned, along with 15 other children whose families couldn't afford it." Truman's face went from red to purple. "You did what?" "The remaining $30,000 is still in our account. Consider it a lesson in partnership and consequences." Heavy silence filled the kitchen. Upstairs, I could hear the girls whispering to each other. "You've lost your mind," Truman finally said. "This isn't over." "You're right," I agreed. "It's just the beginning." My phone buzzed with a text from Gemma. "How's it going? Need backup?" Before I could respond, Truman grabbed his keys, his regular car keys now, and stormed out. The house shook as he slammed the door. I waited until his car disappeared down the street before calling upstairs. "Girls, come down here." They appeared cautiously, holding hands. Tinsley's eyes were wet with tears. "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" Scarlett asked bluntly. I pulled them both close. "I don't know, sweetie. But I do know you're both going to camp this summer, and not just you. Remember Madison from your class? She's going too." Their faces lit up, but Tinsley still looked worried. "What about Daddy's car?" "Sometimes," I said carefully, "we have to make hard choices to do what's right. Your daddy made a choice that hurt our family. I made a choice to fix it." "Like a superhero?" Tinsley asked. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "No, baby, just like a mom who loves her daughters more than anything in the world." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Imran. Marcus loves the car, says it was worth every penny. You okay? I looked at my daughter's hopeful faces and typed back, never better. 3 days of icy silence followed the car incident. Truman slept in the guest room, leaving for work before dawn and returning late. The girls walked on eggshells, whispering instead of their usual chatter. But tonight was our regular family dinner, a tradition I refused to let die. I placed the lasagna on the dining room table just as Truman's car pulled into the driveway. The girls were already seated, picking at their salads. "Daddy's home," Tinsley whispered, as if announcing the arrival of a storm. He walked in, suit jacket over his arm, and paused in the doorway. "What's this?" "Family dinner," I said simply, like every Thursday. He stood there for a long moment before slowly taking his usual seat. The scraping of forks against plates was the only sound for several minutes. "I got an interesting call today," Truman finally said, his voice dangerously calm. "From Marcus." I set down my fork. "Did you?" "He wanted to thank me for selling him such a beautiful car. Apparently he ran into some mutual business associates and couldn't stop bragging about his purchase." Scarlett and Tinsley's heads swiveled between us like they were watching a tennis match. "That was thoughtful of him to call," I said, taking a sip of water. Truman's fork clattered onto his plate. "Thoughtful? Do you have any idea how this makes me look? My colleagues are laughing behind my back. My own wife sold my car." "Our car," all three of us, me and both girls, said in unison. He blinked, startled by the unified response. "And speaking of how things look," I continued, "Gwendolyn called today too. She's organizing a press event to thank the anonymous donor who made it possible for 15 underprivileged kids to attend summer camp." "You didn't." "The local paper will be there. They're very interested in community support stories these days." Truman pushed back from the table. "This is blackmail." "No," I said firmly. "This is consequences. You want to talk about how things look? How does it look when a father cancels his daughter's summer plans to buy himself a toy?" "Mom," Scarlett interrupted, "can I show Daddy my camp schedule? They added archery this year." "Not now, sweetie," I said, not breaking eye contact with Truman. "You had no right," he growled. "I had every right. Just like you did when you made your unilateral decision. The difference is my choice benefited our children and 15 others. What did your choice benefit?" Tinsley started crying quietly. Scarlett put an arm around her sister. "Girls," I said softly, "go up to your room for a bit. Daddy and I need to talk." They fled upstairs, leaving their half-eaten dinners behind. "See what you're doing to this family?" Truman accused once they were gone. "What I'm doing?" I laughed incredulously. "Let me show you something." I pulled out my phone and opened a photo album. "Here's Tinsley having a panic attack when you canceled her writing lessons last year. Here's Scarlett's face when you missed her piano recital for a golf game. Here's me, trying to explain to our daughters why Daddy makes all the big decisions without asking us." "I earn the money," he shouted, standing up so fast his chair toppled backward. "I work 60-hour weeks so you can play house with your mom friends and run your little charity projects." "Playhouse?" My voice was ice. "I manage this family's entire life while you chase status symbols and power trips. I handle the girls' therapy appointments, their school schedules, their social lives. I maintain this house, our relationships, our standing in the community. And I do it all while you treat us like employees instead of family. If you're so unhappy, maybe you should leave," he spat. "Maybe I will. But first, let me be very clear about something." I stood up slowly. "Every decision you make from now on that affects this family will be made together, or I'll make sure the consequences are very public and very expensive." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. And unlike you, I keep those." The sound of muffled sobs from upstairs made us both look toward the ceiling. Truman's face softened slightly. "The girls need their camp money back," he said quietly. "It's not about the money anymore," I replied. "It's about respect, partnership, family. Things you seem to have forgotten matter more than image or status." He picked up his chair and sat down heavily. "What do you want from me, Raquel?" "I want you to remember who we were before you started measuring your worth in dollar signs and luxury purchases. I want you to see your daughters' faces light up when they talk about their dreams, instead of checking your phone for stock updates. I want my husband back. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Truman stood up. I need some air, he said, heading for the door. Take all the time you need, I called after him. But remember, the next move is yours. Choose wisely. The door closed behind him, much softer this time. Upstairs, I could hear the girls playing their music, life slowly returning to normal volumes. For now, at least, the storm had passed. But we both knew bigger ones were brewing. The morning of the press event dawned bright and clear. I stood in front of my closet, trying to decide what to wear, when my phone buzzed with a text from Truman. We need to talk. Lunch today? Can't. Press event at 11, I replied. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, don't do this. I left him on red and picked out a navy blue dress, professional, but not flashy, the kind of outfit that said community-minded mother rather than woman who sold her husband's sports car. Gemma picked me up at 10:30. Ready for your debut as a philanthropist? She asked as I slid into her car. Ready to throw up, I admitted. Truman's been texting all morning. Ignore him. Today isn't about him. But when we pulled into the community center parking lot, there he was, leaning against his sedan in a perfectly pressed suit. What's he doing here? Gemma hissed. Being Truman, I sighed. Go on in, I'll handle this. He straightened as I approached. You're really going through with this? The girls are already at camp orientation. 15 other families are getting the chance of a lifetime. What exactly would you have me do? We could say there was a mistake. Return the money. I shook my head. That's your problem, Truman. You think everything can be fixed with money. And you think everything can be fixed by humiliating me? His voice cracked slightly. My boss called this morning, asked if everything was okay at home. Is it? I challenged. Is everything okay at home, Truman? Before he could answer, Gwendolyn appeared at the community center door. Raquel, we're ready to start. Inside, folding chairs were arranged in rows facing a small podium. Local reporters, all 2 of them, sat in the front row with their notebooks ready. Behind them were mothers from my support group, some with their children. Gwendolyn took the podium, beaming. Today, we're here to celebrate an extraordinary act of generosity. I sat between Gemma and Imran, who had shown up to support me. To my surprise, Truman slipped into an empty chair in the back row. Thanks to an anonymous donor, Gwendolyn continued, 15 children from struggling families will experience the magic of summer camp. She went on to introduce some of the recipient families. A single mother of 3 who worked 2 jobs. A father recently laid off from the factory. A grandmother raising her grandchildren alone. Each story hit harder than the last. When the first mother took the podium, tears streaming down her face as she described her children's joy, I heard a chair scrape behind me. Truman was leaving. I found him in the parking lot, sitting in his car with his head in his hands. You didn't have to stay, I said through the open window. He looked up, his eyes red. Did you know about all those families before you donated? Yes, I've been working with Gwendolyn's group for years. These are our neighbors, Truman, real people with real struggles. He trailed off. I never thought about it that way. That's the problem. I leaned against his car. You stopped thinking about the human cost of things, even with your own family. His phone buzzed, probably work. But for the first time I could remember, he didn't check it. I made dinner reservations, he said suddenly. For tonight, just us. I straightened up. Trying to win me back with expensive meals won't work anymore. No, not at Lorenzo's or any place like that. That diner where we used to go when we were dating. Remember? Where we'd split a slice of pie and dream about our future? The memory hit me hard. 2 young people sharing dessert and planning a life together, before status and money complicated everything. The girls? I asked. Already arranged for them to sleep over at your sister's. He attempted a smile. I thought, maybe we could talk. Really talk. Inside, I could hear applause as another family shared their story. My phone buzzed with a text from Gemma. "Where are you? You're missing it." "I can't fix everything with one dinner," I told Truman. "I know." He gripped the steering wheel tight. "But maybe we can start by remembering who we used to be, before I became this." I studied his face, the familiar features of the man I'd fallen in love with, now lined with stress and something that looked a lot like regret. 7 o'clock, I said finally, and we're splitting the pie. He nodded, managing a real smile this time, just like old times. As I walked back into the community center, I felt oddly light. Not because I believed one dinner could solve our problems, but because for the first time in years, Truman seemed to see what I'd been trying to show him all along. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest steps, even if that step is just sharing a piece of pie. The diner looked exactly the same: red vinyl booths, chrome fixtures, and the perpetual smell of coffee and pie. I arrived 5 minutes early to find Truman already there, wearing jeans and a casual shirt instead of his usual suit. "You changed," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Thought the suit might send the wrong message." He fidgeted with a paper napkin. I ordered coffee and pie. "Apple with ice cream?" Of course. A ghost of our old easy rapport flickered between us. The waitress brought our coffee, and we both reached for the sugar at the same time. Our hands touched briefly before we both pulled back. "So," I said, stirring my coffee, "talk." Truman took a deep breath. "I've been doing some thinking about what you said regarding the families at the community center, about our girls, about us. And? And I called my therapist today, made an appointment." I nearly dropped my spoon. "You haven't seen Dr. Harrison in years." 3 years, 2 months, he grimaced, "right around the time I got the promotion." The waitress returned with our pie, 1 slice, 2 forks, just like old times. "I also did something else today," Truman continued, pushing the plate toward me. "I went to the camp, watched the girls during their afternoon activities." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "You did?" "Scarlett hit 3 bullseyes in archery. And Tinsley," his voice cracked slightly, "she looked so happy on that horse, Raquel. I can't remember the last time I saw her smile like that." "Because you're never there to see it," I said quietly. He flinched but nodded. "I deserve that. I deserve all of it. The car, the public embarrassment, everything." "This isn't about what you deserve," I said, setting down my fork. "It's about what our family needs." "I know, that's why—" He was interrupted by his phone buzzing. Without looking at it, he turned it off completely and put it away. "That could have been important," I said, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing's more important than fixing this." He gestured between us. "If you'll let me try." I took a bite of pie, letting the familiar taste bring back memories of easier times. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Couples counseling, for starters. And I want to cut back my hours at work, be home for dinner more often, actually see our daughters grow up instead of just funding it." "Your career is important to you," I reminded him. "You're more important. The girls are more important." He pushed his hands through his hair in frustration. I lost sight of that somewhere along the way, started measuring success in dollars instead of moments. Just then, my phone chimed with a text. It was a photo from my sister, the girls making s'mores in her backyard, their faces smeared with chocolate and huge grins. I turned the phone to show Truman. "This is what success looks like." He stared at the photo for a long moment. "I miss them. Even though I see them every day, I miss who they are when I'm not watching." "They miss you too. The real you, not the distant provider who shows up with expensive gifts, but can't remember what grade they're in." "Fourth and second," he said quickly. "And Scarlett wants to try out for the school play, and Tinsley's been begging for a guinea pig, and—" He trailed off at my surprised expression. "I do listen, Raquel. I just forgot how to show it." The waitress appeared with more coffee. "You two been coming here a long time, haven't you? I remember when you were just kids yourselves." 15 years, Truman answered. "First date." "Split a piece of pie," the waitress smiled. "Some things never change." But things did change, I thought as she walked away. The question was whether they could change back, or better yet, forward into something new. I can't promise to forget everything that's happened, I said carefully. But I can promise to try if you can prove this isn't just another reaction to consequences. Truman reached across the table, palm up. After a moment's hesitation, I placed my hand in his. I'll prove it, he said. Every day. Starting with this weekend, I want to go to the camp, watch the girls' activities, all day, both days. They'd love that. And maybe... He squeezed my hand gently. We could pack a picnic. Make it a family day? I looked at our joined hands, then at his hopeful face. The man I'd fallen in love with was still in there, struggling to break free from the corporate mask he'd worn for so long. One day at a time, I said finally, starting with finishing this pie. He picked up his fork with his free hand, not letting go of mine. Just like old times? No, I corrected him. Better than old times, because now we know what we almost lost. 2 weeks after our diner conversation, I sat in Dr. Harrison's waiting room, watching Truman pace. Our first couples therapy session, and he looked like he might bolt at any second. We can reschedule, I offered. No, he said firmly. I need to do this. We need to do this. The door opened, and Dr. Harrison appeared, a tall woman with kind eyes and silver hair. Raquel, Truman, come in. Her office hadn't changed. Same comfortable chairs, same box of tissues on the side table. Truman and I sat facing her, a careful distance between us. So, Dr. Harrison said, settling into her chair, tell me what brings you here today. I sold his car, I blurted out. Dr. Harrison's eyebrows shot up. Truman actually laughed. That's certainly an interesting starting point, she said. Truman, how do you feel about that? Honestly, he shifted in his chair. Embarrassed. Not because Raquel sold the car, but because I needed her to do something that dramatic to wake me up. Wake you up to what? To the fact that I'd become exactly the kind of husband and father I never wanted to be. Controlling, absent, prioritizing status over family. I felt tears prick at my eyes. It was the most honest thing he'd said in years. Raquel, Dr. Harrison turned to me. What prompted such a dramatic action? He canceled our daughter's summer camp to buy that car, without discussing it with any of us. It wasn't the first time he'd made unilateral decisions, but it was the last straw. And how are things now? Before either of us could answer, Truman's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at it, and to my shock, turned it off completely. That was my boss, he said. He's been less than supportive of my reduced hours. Tell her what happened yesterday, I prompted. Truman ran his hands through his hair. I missed a crucial meeting because I was at Tinsley's riding demonstration. My boss called me into his office afterward, said I needed to reassess my priorities. And what did you say? Dr. Harrison asked. I told him I already had. Then I handed him my resignation. I whipped around to face him. You what? I didn't tell you because I wanted to discuss it here with Dr. Harrison. He turned to face me fully. I've been offered a position at a smaller firm. Less money, but regular hours. No weekend work. Time for family. But your career, I started, is not worth losing you and the girls. His voice cracked. The look on Tinsley's face when she saw me in the crowd yesterday, that's worth more than any corner office. Dr. Harrison leaned forward. This is quite a significant change, Truman. What sparked it? The day at the community center, he said quietly, watching those families talk about their struggles, seeing how something as simple as summer camp could mean so much. It made me realize how wrapped up I'd become in chasing things that don't matter. And how do you feel about this change, Raquel? I twisted my wedding ring, thinking. Scared, I admitted. Not about the money. We have savings, and I can increase my hours at the library. I'm scared this is temporary, that in 6 months or a year, he'll resent us for derailing his career. I won't, Truman said firmly, but I understand why you'd think that. I need to earn back your trust. Dr. Harrison made a note on her pad. That's an excellent insight. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It takes consistent action over time. Like showing up for riding lessons? I asked softly. Like showing up for everything, Truman replied. The big moments and the small ones. And what about the car incident? Dr. Harrison asked. Have you fully resolved those feelings? Truman actually smiled. You know what's funny? Marcus, the guy who bought it, invited me to golf last weekend. Said he loved the car, but loved even more that it came with a story about a wife who wouldn't be pushed around. And did you go? I asked, surprised he hadn't mentioned this. No, it was Scarlett's archery competition that day. He reached for my hand. I'm done missing the important stuff. Dr. Harrison watched our joined hands with a slight smile. Well, this is certainly a promising start, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. Are you both committed to this process? I looked at Truman, really looked at him. The designer suits were gone, replaced by comfortable clothes. The perpetual furrow between his brows had softened. He looked more like the man I'd married, and less like the stranger he'd become. Yes, we said simultaneously. Good, Dr. Harrison said, picking up her calendar. Because healing takes time and commitment, and sometimes, she smiled at me, it takes selling a car. For the first time in weeks, I felt real hope. Not because everything was fixed, but because we were finally both fighting for the same thing. Our family, our future, our second chance. The autumn air was crisp as I stood at the camp's closing ceremony, watching Scarlett and Tinsley receive their achievement badges. Truman stood beside me, his arm around my waist, beaming with pride. And now, Gwendolyn announced from the podium, I'd like to introduce someone special. The donor who made this summer possible for so many families has agreed to finally step forward. Truman squeezed my hand as I made my way to the stage. The gathered families, all of them, not just the scholarship recipients, broke into applause. Hi, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I'm Raquel. And this summer wasn't just about giving, it was about learning what really matters. From the crowd, I spotted Gemma giving me a thumbs up. Next to her, Imran nodded encouragingly. Sometimes, I continued, we forget that true wealth isn't about what's in our garages or our bank accounts. It's about the memories we make, the lives we touch, and the lessons we teach our children. My eyes found Truman in the crowd. He wasn't wearing a suit today, just jeans and a camp volunteer t-shirt stained with paint from helping rebuild the arts and crafts cabin last weekend. This summer, my family learned those lessons the hard way, but what started as an act of... I paused, smiling. Let's call it creative redistribution of resources turned into something beautiful. 15 families got to experience the magic of summer camp, and one family... I looked at my daughters, who were practically bouncing with excitement. One family found its way back to what matters. After the ceremony, families mingled over punch and cookies. Tinsley ran up to me, clutching her riding certificate. Mom, Marcus is here. Can I show him my ribbons? I turned to see Marcus approaching with his daughter, one of the scholarship recipients, both wearing matching grins. Quite a speech, Marcus said, shaking my hand. Almost makes me feel bad about buying that car. Don't, Truman said, joining us. Best thing that ever happened to me was losing it. Really? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Because I heard you just turned down the CEO position at your old firm. I whirled to face Truman. You never told me they offered... Didn't seem important, he shrugged. I like my new job. I'm home for dinner every night. I know what's happening in my kids' lives. No corner office is worth trading that. Scarlett appeared, dragging Gwendolyn behind her. Mom, can we tell them about the foundation now? Foundation? Several voices asked simultaneously. I nodded at Gwendolyn, who stepped forward. Raquel and Truman have decided to establish a permanent scholarship fund for the camp. Starting next summer, we'll be able to offer 30 full scholarships every year. That's... Marcus looked stunned. That's incredible. Well, Truman said, pulling out his wallet and removing a familiar photo. Someone recently reminded me what real investment looks like. It was the picture of him with his sports car, the one he'd sent me that day. But now it was folded, and he opened it to reveal a new photo behind it. Him teaching Tinsley to ride, both of them laughing. Best trade I ever made, he said softly. Later, as we were packing up our car to leave, Imran approached with a small package. A little something to commemorate the summer, he said, handing it to me. Inside was a framed photo of our family at the camp's talent show, all of us covered in glitter from Scarlett's magic act gone wrong. We were laughing, completely unself-conscious and utterly happy. Perfect timing, Truman said. I just cleared off my desk at work. This will look great there. Better than a photo of a car? I teased. He pulled me close, kissing my temple. Much better. Mom! Tinsley called from the car. Can we get ice cream on the way home? Actually, Truman said, I was thinking we could go to the diner, split some pie as a family. The girls cheered. As we walked to the car, Gwendolyn caught my arm. You know, she said quietly, when you sold that car, we all thought you were just getting revenge. But you created something magical instead. I watched Truman help the girls into the car, listening patiently as they argued over who got to tell the story of their summer adventures first. Not revenge, I said. Redemption, for all of us. As we drove away from the camp, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the rearview mirror, 4 people singing along to the radio, completely out of tune and perfectly in harmony. Some things are worth more than all the sports cars in the world. It just took selling one to help us remember that. Hey, Truman said, reaching for my hand. Thank you for not giving up on us. I laced my fingers through his, listening to our daughter's laughter in the back seat. Thank you for giving me something worth fighting for.